Welcome back to Racially Speaking, a podcast dedicated to having real and honest conversations about race as it's viewed through the lenses of faith, family, and vocation. I'm David, and you are listening to episode 3. I'll probably end up saying this every episode, but I'm really excited for you all to meet my next guest. I recently had the chance to catch up with one of my oldest friends, Christy Miller, to discuss some really important topics related to raising and navigating a multiracial family. These topics are not only extremely personal to me, but some that I believe anyone who is passionate about learning needs to lean into. Christy and her husband Daniel have an incredible story, and although I've known them for upwards of 25 years, I learned a ton from this conversation. Christy is a wealth of knowledge, and I really appreciated the honesty she brought, along with a lot of humility. As a white mother of 3 black children, Christy's story, although not unique, is one filled with many intersections that I think are important to process through as a parent and an overall advocate for racial justice. I really enjoyed this one, so without further ado, here is our conversation. Hey, Christy. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time by coming on here. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. It feels like we're just hanging out.
I know. And I feel terrible. I already told you before we hit record, but you're a mama of 5 and you have is Piper 2 months old now?
Yeah. Well, almost. Yeah.
Almost. Yeah. And I feel terrible because, we're going to say in a minute how long we've known each other, but we haven't even taken time to meet the baby. We're 5 hours apart, but we haven't taken time to Zoom in or anything, so I'm a terrible friend.
No, you're not. You are not.
Anyway, this kind of doubles, and you're right. We get to hang out, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that note, let's tell everyone how long we've known each other because we're getting kind of old now. So how long has it been? I want to hear what you say because I think I know, but
we met in 4th grade.
Okay, that's 4th grade. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah. 4th grade. For those of you listening that don't know, so we've known each other. I'm not good at math. Upwards of 25-ish years.
That's a long time. Oh my goodness.
Gosh. Yeah. You and to the listeners, so Christy and Daniel, her husband, I've known, really like our whole lives pretty much. Yeah, kindergarten, known Daniel, 4th grade, Christy. Anyone that knows you guys have been, I'd say, together since then, as far as I can remember. I know there's some bumps.
We can summarize it that way.
Yeah. I was trying to summarize for you. But yeah, you guys, I consider Christy and Daniel family, for sure. You guys are awesome human beings. Christy and Daniel are, can I say singer-songwriter, worship leaders. You guys have written songs.
Original songs under our belt, though, that I would take that type. Yes, there are some.
Okay, in my mind, you write songs and you sing, so that goes hand in hand, right?
I've done some originals for you, actually. I forget. We don't do them for that many people. You're of the small select few. That's right. I forgot. So, yes.
Radford crew, represent.
Explain that to you.
So,
lead worship and...
Yeah, you wear a bunch of different hats.
This is true.
Momma of 5, which is probably, I guess, the biggest one for you, right?
It is. But, if you manage the time creatively and just right, you can accomplish other things as well. So, worship leader at a church and involved with some other ministries in the area of Hampton Roads and also full-time wife. And he's in seminary and works full-time. So we have a few things we juggle.
Yeah, that's
5 little humans.
So even more, thank you for giving a night to me to record with you. You're also a jellyfish. No, not jellyfish. Stingray survivor. Broken ankle twice survivor.
Current broken.
You want to
wearing a boot?
Do you want to elaborate at all, or?
Well, 2020. A lot of people think COVID. I think injury after injury after injury.
Stingray.
I broke my foot earlier in the summer, and I was pregnant during all this. And then late summer, I just 1 in a million, less than that chance, stepped in the ocean, stung by a stingray. Let me tell you what, there's like no research on pregnant people being injected with stingray venom.
Oh my gosh.
And it was really scary because we won't make that a topic here, but I have had a lot of child losses. And so then getting stung and them saying, well, we don't know how to fix the baby. Like, to me, it was like, okay, well, there's that. There's this again.
Oh my gosh.
But baby was fine. She's fine. 7 weeks old now. And I did survive that. And then I broke my foot a couple weeks ago. Again, broke my ankle.
How's it?
It still hurts.
Nice pun. Yeah, I was going to say, how's it? Are you in a boot or?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Man, you are a trooper, to say the least. Well, yeah, anyway, I appreciate you coming on so we can, catch up, but then talk about some, we're honestly going to be elaborating on conversations I know we've had over the last 3-4 years, and probably our whole lives, but really the last, I'd say couple years. You and Daniel's journey being parents is, I guess I won't say unique, but to me it's unique. I don't know anyone that has a story like you guys. Yeah, not super common. And there's a lot, there's so many different directions and things we have talked about and could talk about. So we're going to try and hone in on these. So for people listening that don't know Christy and Daniel, you guys are white. This podcast is about race. And I've had some amazing conversations with you guys about this. You guys are for sure allies. You guys are some of my best friends. But specifically for you all, you guys have a multiracial family. That was never the plan, but you guys have always, I consider you two people that have advocated for people of color and just, the oppressed and people in general. So, you guys are amazing human beings, but it became really personal for you as you're
up at the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah. Well, okay. So as your family has grown, let's just get into it. It's become personal, especially speaking up for racial justice. Can you, I casted the net wide, but just go where you want to go with that.
Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say we do talk about this stuff often, but that means so much for you to say that because nobody is ever going to get everything right all the time, but it's definitely like a big part of our heart. And I'm glad that somebody close to me that comes off that way for you and that you feel supported and that it's genuinely felt. For us, definitely a complete shift in mindset for us in 2016 when we got our first foster placement, and he happened to be a little Black boy, and we had said any race, any gender. We didn't say any age because at the time babies were in the wheelhouse of what we were doing, and that's what we felt comfortable with for foster care. So any babies that came our way. And so the first one, like I said, was a little Black boy, and we did not realize how much we did not realize we did not know about racial everything when we took that baby. And just really, that's when I think we grew so much. And like I said, always learning, always growing, always a student of life and empathy and awareness. But that's definitely when I know for us, it was like a subtle change, but all of a sudden I realized my perspective of life and people was very different. And I did put down a couple of notes because we are good friends and we could talk for 5 hours if I don't hone this in.
Oh yeah, I'm staring at that.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what time is it? Okay, so I'm gonna spend an hour on this topic. No, I'm just kidding. But I was just gonna say, like, we learned so much. So first of all, when we said we wanted to foster, so it has to do with it. But when we said we wanted to foster, we were shocked at how many, so this is within like Christian community context that I'm saying this, we were shocked at how many believers around us were like, ew, don't do that. And we had a lot of people that really surprised us that said things like, that'll inconvenience you, that won't be comfortable, I don't understand why you foster. Yeah, and these are Christians. And I'm like, like I said, nobody's perfect, but that mindset was shocking. And not only that, but I'm thinking, it's not like we asked you to do it. Why do you care if we do it? And that was really shocking. And we got through that. And the reason I said that, though, is because then the next thing that we experienced when we got our first little boy, We didn't realize how many people, everyone has biases that they aren't aware that they have. Implicit bias is basically you're unaware of having it. And then we realized that because a lot of comments that were said around our child by people that we knew and we loved that were said very innocently. They weren't said to be rude. They weren't said to be offensive or degrading or anything like that. But it came from just some ignorance and unawareness that those words were hurtful. And we started learning really quickly how to advocate for people. So anyway, I think that was a really big culture shock for us. And I know what the next thing I was going to say was. Sorry, you might want to cut that out. But the next thing I was going to say is,
you're good.
So the Charlottesville, I know stuff happens all the time with racial tension. It's not like new under the sun in 2020 or 2016 or before that. But when the Charlottesville stuff was going on,
at UVA.
Sorry. I just assumed everyone knew what I was talking about. But that's when we had our little boy. And so that was really earth shaking to us when, like with Black Lives Matter. And on this podcast, I'm not going into like organization itself versus not, but just the saying of what it is, Black Lives Matter. A lot of our family and friends did not comprehend its significance. And so now here we are for the first time, a family with combined races, and we are now empathetic towards it in a way that I don't think we recognized before. And the people that we love, not everybody, but more than I wish, people that we loved did not understand. And so then we found ourselves, as we were learning and becoming more educated, we were having to walk the line of grace and education with people. Because when specifically, I'm going to speak from white context because that is what I am, specifically when white friends and family of mine didn't understand things, it's very easy to get upset and defensive, but that's not beneficial most of the time. And so we would pick and choose how to say things to slowly educate. And I will say over the last several years, we've seen in our circles, people's awareness really change as well. So that's just like one-on-one growth that we've helped to be a part of, as well as with ourselves. Like I said, it's not like we're ever done learning or anyone is. I've had a few people say things to me in like our circles of friends. They don't understand things like Black Lives Matter. And so they'll say, well, I don't own slaves. Why should I have to apologize for being white? And so then the response is like, well, nobody's asking you to apologize for being white. We're asking you to acknowledge people and feel for people and listen and let people be seen and heard and empathize that when somebody says they're hurting, not, I don't care. And so it's been a lot in the last year in our family.
It's comments like that almost reinforce why we're still having the conversations, if that makes sense. Because I've been in conversations with people that innocently and maybe even more passive aggressively, depends who it is, will say something like, slavery is in the past, let's just move forward, like it's not still affecting what's happening now. And it's just, case in point, when people say something like, well, I don't own slaves, it's completely disconnected. It's like, no, because of
the conversation here, that's not what we're saying.
Right. Because of comments like that, it's like why we actually have to keep, I say we, I'm not going to speak for the Black community, but in those conversations for me, I'm like, well, it's kind of, I feel like beliefs and views like that are why we actually, the Black community has to keep reminding everyone how interconnected it is to 2020, 2021, right. Charlottesville. Can you believe it? Crazy.
And then obviously this year things were more, I'm going to use the word heightened because like we said, it's not like it's not happening when it's not news. So anyway, I spent a long time on that, but my point was that was before my kids were old enough to have any clue as to what's going on because they're just babies with bottles on the floor, And
So
now,
remind me and I guess we should tell our listeners. So you have 5 kids.
yes,
How old are they?
I do. It is 6.5, 3.5, 2.5, 1.5, 2 months. So
Everyone got that? Yeah. So all super young.
They are. And so our oldest, he's 6.5, Jude. He is a biological child of ours. He is white. And so the way that, and he's very young and he's very sensitive, more than your typical child his age. And so the way that we talk about race, which is all the time, the way that we talk about culture and race and humanity is very different than how we're going to talk to our other kids when they reach that age. Number one, because they're all different people. So regardless of any other details, they're all different people. Yeah. But on top of that, our middle 3 are Black and our bookends, as I call them, are white. And so the way that we teach them how to treat people and about culture and their culture and other people's culture is going to be a little bit different. But also my next oldest child is special needs as well. And so she's not really 3.5 cognitively. So we're not really talking to her about race things very much. She can't tell you her name. So we're not really there with her. But some of the things that we do are like at Christmas time, I used to really love angels. So I still do Christmas angels. And did not occur to me that all my angels are blonde and white. And for those that cannot see me, I am blonde and white. And so that's not why, it's just what the angels look like. But I'm thinking now, as being in the position I am of a white mom of a Black daughter and 2 Black sons, I'm like, I don't want everything in the house that's not them to be white. And so especially for my daughter, I don't want, mommy's already white with blonde hair. I don't want when she looks up everything to be white with blonde hair. I literally got down on my knees when she was 1.5 and scooted around the house at her height and thought, what does everything look like from her view? And now the majority of our angels are Black. And it's not just about the angels, but it's about looking through that perspective of what it's like for them. And I can't change what I look like or what my husband looks like, but we can change some of their surroundings. And kind of like you and Zach were talking about last week, the toys, the dolls, and they're done that. It is hard to find sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I went back because I hadn't heard of the thing. I think Chris Buck was the artist or the photographer that he was talking about. So, I found out during the episode, so I went and looked it up. And it's just like he said, really, I don't know if cool is the right word, but just you pause at all the photos, especially the one with the little white girl who looks about 5 or 6 looking up, I guess, in the toy store, and all the dolls are Black. And just you pause because you're like, that doesn't happen. That doesn't exist for the most part. And then
Amazon has been our friend. It's a lot easier to find on Amazon stores.
It's been our bailout, really. And then or some of the other pictures, the one with the all the Asian women getting their nails done by all the white women. It's just I loved it just because of how it makes you think. It makes it more in your face of just, this causes me to pause for a reason that is just completely about race. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Things that we have to think about are like sports teams, where we live, and are the teams that our kids going to be on diverse? And like I said, they're not all old enough to play sports yet, but it's something we have to already be thinking about and planning for. And another thing is we do have a lot of kids, and our house and our neighborhood, like, it's a diverse neighborhood, and we've contemplated, if we have to move or something to have more space. I don't see that happening. I don't see us moving, and not even money being the issue as much as just, I like the diversity of our neighborhood. And when we walk out the door, I don't want my kids to see all of one race, regardless of what that is. And this, especially though, not all white people, that they just already have so much of that around them. We took our little boys to the barbershop for the first time the other day.
I saw your post on Instagram. Man, that Titus is so cute.
His hair grows so fast, like faster than any of my other kids. So he is going to need to be in there every week. I kid you not.
How did he? Your caption I think said he struggled a little bit. He had to sit on your lap. Is that right?
Oh yeah, So it was also my first time in the barber chair. I said. But yeah, so it's, stuff like that. We have to just be really intentional about culturally. I don't want my kid to be a 10-year-old in class and he's the only one that's never gone to a barber shop. Like that's just, there are certain things that are going to be different in his life, but I want to eliminate as many things I can that are missed cultural opportunities, experiences that, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's just something we're always going to try to compensate for.
Yeah. So Jude is your oldest, and one of your biological kids. You talked about how you talk to them about race individually. I don't know, can you give us an example of some things, like how you dialogue with Jude being the oldest and white? I don't know, an example conversation, however you want to take it.
With him, we'll have to come back in a few years and get the update on the other kids. But his babies, really. And for them, I know it's not what you asked, but for them, it's, reading books that are about that topic, or, my skin's beautiful, all of our, that kind of stuff. But that's really as much as it's going to get for my 2-year-old. For Jude, it's anything that's happening calendar-wise. Like, obviously, we talked about Martin Luther King a lot. Then, a few weeks ago. And then we've been talking about Black History Month since the beginning of January, even though it wasn't February yet. We were preparing him for understanding what it was. And then we've been talking about it a lot now that it is February. But for him, he knows about slavery. He knows about, we explained it as basically Black people were kidnapped. Some stuff we worded more gently, just because, like I say, he's a very sensitive child. And even though it's heavy material, we're not trying to hide that. We're trying to do it in a very age appropriate way. But we also didn't want him to hear about this from school or from somewhere else that wasn't his parents, and from his own family. We wanted him to hear those things from us. So we've been talking to him about those heavier things that ruin childhood innocence.
I feel like I should say, I've known you for a long time, so I'm used to it, but Christy has a laugh that she laughs when most people would cry. So I don't know if anyone's noticing. I don't want anyone to think that any of this, some of it I guess been humorous. You tend to laugh when a lot of people cry. So I don't want anyone to think that you're laughing about anything.
Oh boy. Yes. Well, anyway, we've talked to him about all of those things pretty much, and how he's got to make sure that he's listening and being very careful when other people might be saying ugly things to people. So, he's just a little guy still. The conversations are obviously going to have to get a lot deeper and harder as they age. But right now, it's pretty much stuff like you're more careful of how you vacation and how you do hair and stuff like that. Like, we were on a cruise a few years ago, and we had our they were so tiny then. I'm saying they're babies now, but they were truly babies then. And one of the excursions was like going on a plantation and checking out, like, not for historical, like a museum, but like for partying on this plantation. And I was very uncomfortable with that. And I just thought, I don't know if a few years ago, I obviously knew what a plantation was, but I think I would have been like, oh, that's sad that that's what this was, but now we're vacationing on it. I can't think about it like that. And I'm not going to march around my 3 Black little children on a plantation for vacation. Like, that just, it's different. It's different. And there's a different awareness there.
Yeah.
Than there would have been.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Of having, you've had to be more aware, but what a need to change, and what a great example of, because I can definitely relate to that, of just flippantly being like, oh, that's one of, it's kind of insidious of like having the mentality of, oh, it's not a plantation anymore. So and just moving on and let it be in the past. But it can be,
these are significant,
can be and would be traumatic to your Black children.
I don't want them to look back in pictures and be like, nothing to my mom, when really, I could sob at, like, movies affect me very differently now. Anything that's basically, which is a lot of stuff, but anything that we're watching that has to do with terrible treatment, with racial tensions, that's my family. Like, it's sad anyway, because it's humanity and it should break our hearts anyway, but it's very personal and very deep to me. Those are my babies, and that's the fact that anybody, anyway, we all know what hurts somebody just because of how they look or their culture is different is just awful.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
So you've talked, I remember we've touched briefly on this in the past conversations, but, and I don't want to take a turn down towards Negativeville. I'm not saying you will, but I could go there pretty easily. Anyway, do you, you said, I don't know, like out in public, out in stores, maybe you, I guess, routinely will have a stranger. I mean, you've touched on people that you know, but strangers say insensitive things to you when they see you and your kids. Can you give like an example and then talk about how you dealt with that maybe or deal with it regularly, I guess?
Yeah. Well, first, for all my moms out there, doesn't matter what your family situation is, what your skin color is, nothing. We all know that this is just the facts of life. If a dad takes out his little girl to the grocery store, doesn't matter. She could be in her jammies, full bedhead. Everyone's like, oh, how cute. Good job. What a great time. A mom goes out and it's like, why does her hair look like that? Why is her sock on backwards? It's just very different expectations. So I'm just putting that out there.
No, yeah. I'll receive that. Yeah.
The sexist facts of life. Okay?
Ooh, okay.
So now it's a different kind of podcast, but it's all related. Okay. But yeah, when I go out and it's just me specifically and a few of my children or all of my children, I will get comments like, people, it's none of their business, but people will be like, hey, are you babysitting? Like they just have to know. And and that's really, really, so for anybody out there that's listening, that's thinking about saying that to anybody, don't do that in front of the children. Because now you're implying to my children that they shouldn't belong to me or that they don't belong to me. Yeah. So people will ask that. People will say, are they all yours? And then sometimes people will get very, very bold and I suppose disgusted by me, which shows more of their heart than anything else. And they will say things like, wow, you really get around, don't you? Stuff like that. Because I have multiple children and they all look very different and it's none of their dang business. But I will tell you, I say that with so much sass right now, but in the moment, that's truly not my heart with it. My heart, number one, is to protect my kids. So I don't want people to say stuff like that around their ears, which I know I can't always control. But in that moment, taking it to another level, in that moment, as a Christ follower, even though a lot of me wants to be like, it's none of your dang business. As a Christ follower, it's like, you never have a chance to see that. You might never have a chance to see that person again. And at the end of the day, we are Christ. If you are a Christ follower, that is your identity. And so at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Not losing your cool, not defending yourself, but that. So a lot of times what I'll do if somebody says something like that, or not the really rude comment, but like, oh, are they all yours or something like that, I will like quietly kind of walk over to where they can hear me. Like if I'm pushing a shopping cart or something, I'll be like, oh, hey, I know your intention was just to be friendly or curious. I said, but could you not say that like in front of my kids? And then I'll say, we used to foster and we adopted and this is our beautiful family God gave us. And then we'll keep talking. And I don't say that because I owe them an explanation. I say that because I know that God would want us to show grace. And these are educational moments. Yeah. Like it's like for me, or for everyone really, but my perspective is it's like the gospel. So for people that don't know, they need the gospel and then they get it and they understand it and they've received it. You can never look at it life the same, right? And so for people that truly do not understand, like it's not meant with ugly intentions, but people that truly do not understand some of these racial tensions, the point of racial reconciliation, the importance of any of this in people's lives, people that don't understand that, they don't understand how much they need to learn it. And if you take the time to talk to people with kindness and respect, you've done your due diligence in trying to teach them that. And if they catch on to it, they're never going to see life the same.
Yes.
And so, So in the moment, I'm always like, oh, all of me wants to be like, it's none of your business. But I don't think I've ever done that ever, because I think in that moment, this is the life God has called me to. This is the family God has given me. And what are you going to do with it? It's not just So teaching moments, they're all teaching moments to the kids, to strangers, to me and my patients.
I mean, thank you for sharing all that. I mean, this is why I needed to have someone like you on, or you specifically, but man, thanks for taking us to
Yeah.
to church a little bit. I mean, we grew up, I mean, we've known each other for forever, but I would like to say that is, even doing this podcast, that's my heart all the time, and that's how I'd respond and have responded to people who say insensitive things or even come off insensitive as far as racial remarks go and passing comments. But I mean, I've shared, I think, on both episodes so far, but I'm just, especially right now, not in that place all the time. And I think even the flip side, it's God's grace that sometimes people don't say something to me, because it's almost like he knows, like, no, that's not going to go well for David, because, oh man, he's on the edge. And I feel like I've been there more in this past year than my entire life put together as far as this stuff goes. Yeah. But that's amazing examples and advice of how to deal with that.
This is going to sound a little more absurd. You guys are going to be like, you're the crazy Home Depot lady. And you're right. But I can't tell you how many people in Home Depot I have gotten phone numbers of because they want to talk about it more. And like random people.
They give you their phone number.
Yeah. And I give them mine. And I'm like,
right.
I talk to people about this all the time. Like, I'm here for it. So,
oh my gosh, that's how you do it. I'll throw my notes. I'm going to put my notes aside. How has that gone with follow up?
Yeah, I know. I tell people, this is how I pitch it. I say,
also, talk about it. Like what?
It could be fostering, adoption, why I foster, why it matters to my heart. A lot of times I'll literally be walking down an aisle. It is Home Depot again that I'm referencing, because that was the most recent one the other day. It was 2 days ago. But okay. Walking down the aisle, and I hear this lady, oh, he won't let me. I was thinking about dogs, but something kids. And instantly just from that, which is totally vague, random half sentence, I just knew she was talking about fostering, because it's like dogs, kids, and people foster dogs. And I literally walked back down the aisle and said, are you talking about fostering? And she said, yes. And we stood there and talked for 10, 15 minutes in the aisle. And then I said, here's my number. And I said, typically what I do with rando people is I say, hey, if you have a bunch of questions about any of this, it's easier to do a phone call initially. So we'll talk on the phone for anywhere from like 30 minutes to an hour. And then I say, text me with the small questions after. But if it's a big question, just call,
Okay. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Sometimes Daniel will put the kids down and then walk back in the bedroom, and I'm on the phone. He's like, who is it? I'm like, you don't know. It's too much to explain right now. I'm on the phone. You don't know them. This is the Walmart lady, okay?
Home Depot lady from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, very nice. So that's why I'm like, in the moment, it can be exhausting, but I'm like, what's the point at the end of the day? What is the point of this life? What was the point of the oxygen God gave me today? Yeah, my kids are a big part of that. But at the end of the day, I don't know. It's just it's the constant reminder to be patient with people that don't know how much they need the truth of this, and this being loving people and caring for people and caring about racial tension and injustices in the gospel.
I'm truly convicted hearing that. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, yeah, I'm up to talk whenever I want to talk about this. And, I tell people, don't let the conversations die out, follow up with each other, pursue conversations. But that kind of thing wasn't in my mind. That's amazing.
Well, fostering has definitely been a good doorway to talk about all that.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. Have you ever had sorry, I'm fascinated. I mean, have you had ongoing relationships with anybody because of that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had a few people actually sign up to foster. So then I see them at
oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Or they'll text me like 3 months later, a year later, hey, I just finished my certification. We're doing it. Thanks for your help. I'm like, sweet.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
The main thing that, like I said, there's so little still, so there's so much to come. But something big for us is advocating, like I was talking about earlier, advocating to the other people in our lives. So kind of prepping the way for their life once they know what's going on a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just taking what we're learning right now and spreading that is the majority.
All right, so you explained, I mean, we talked a lot about you being the Home Depot lady walking around and stuff. So I think you touched on it a little bit, but on the flip side, there's this, thing, which I know you're familiar with the white savior complex. And can you talk about, I know you've talked to me some about it. Can you talk about having to kind of navigate that as well, of, being looked at or having comments said to you about, you're just trying to save all these Black children, white lady?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So we've definitely seen the gamut of comments, and that's one end. For anyone that doesn't know, the white savior complex is basically when a white person comes in and for their own good feelings does things for people that aren't white.
Which can be tied back to, a lot of slavery, which I'll say that again.
Yeah. So to the two ends of the spectrum. So some people will see us and like out and about with our kiddos and stuff, and they will say things like, it's usually an elderly person, not to be ageist, but it just typically is. They'll say something like, oh, bless you for taking those children. They'll say it like that. And that's obviously incredibly offensive. Like, why would we not take those children? But they're saying it in a way like, oh, we've done something so wonderful. And then the other end of the spectrum is people will say things like, not to my face, but I've heard people within intentional earshot say something like, oh, that's just a white lady trying to save Black kids, And I don't always get a chance to address those because it's not really the same thing as what I was talking about in Home Depot earlier. But to that, first of all, it's very, very offensive. It's a thin line because on one end, you want to be very aware that that is a thing. And so that's important to be aware of it. But on the other end, I think most people it applies to don't comprehend what it means. So it's really not that helpful to call it out because they don't get it and they're doing it. You know what I mean? But I think that for us, it's very offensive because number one, we went, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with however God made your family. I can't speak to other people's stories, but for my story, we didn't pick our children. This is who God sent us. This is who we had through foster care. And it's wonderful and it's beautiful. And I love my children. Like I push them out of myself, but it's not like we went around saying, I'm going to pick this child because he's Black. I'm going to pick this child. That's not how our story was made. So for somebody to look at somebody that happens to be white and to make an assumption of how their family came to be, it's very judgmental. And it's, but the white savior complex is a thing. There are people in the circles I run in. I don't personally know anybody that's their situation, but I know of people. And a lot of times you'll see like certain mission trips that are like, especially brief ones that
and mission trips photos or protest photos.
Yeah, you'll see pretty much it's a cue. Anytime something's very, very brief and there's no like actual lifestyle thing with it, especially these are red flags of it. But yeah, so when somebody goes somewhere and they're just doing something that's not really making a big difference and they're the hero of the situation, basically, is a very good example of what not to do. If you're a white person, you have to be very careful of, even if it's not your intention, I guess how it comes off. It matters a lot to people. But I was going to say a good example of how not to be a white savior when you're white is if you've heard of Liz Bohannon, she founded Seiko Designs, and she started a socially conscious fashion brand in Uganda. And basically she taught and developed these women to work. It's all women, and it helps them pay to go to universities and stuff. So that they now fund their own business. She's not doing it. They're doing it. They're their own heroes of their own life. She's not doing that for them. You know what I mean? And she is a white person who started this business, but now, you know what I mean? That's very different than I ran in here and took pictures and gave you candy and laughed. And
it's sustainable, right?
It's different. I'm not saying everyone has to go start a company, but it's just very different. I will say a danger of people have to be careful not to throw around the term white savior, because I will say white people as a whole, not everybody, but white people as a whole tend to be very scared of saying or doing the wrong thing. And so when people throw around, I've heard this from many white people, if white savior is thrown around a lot, then they're too scared to do anything. They're too scared to say anything because they'll say the wrong thing. And that's not right either. And people have to have the freedom to try and mess up. Oh, I did say the wrong thing. So gently educate me. Tell me how to do it right. Tell me what's beneficial, Right. And if people are too scared to do anything, that's not going to help society either. So I'm very funny with the coinage of the term of that. And like I said, it's important to be educated that it exists, but I think it gets thrown around pretty heavily sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah,
so it's a tricky one. I've been places before where people were, I know. Daniel and I one time, was we go to conferences and all kinds of stuff for fostering adoption and for racial reconciliation all the time. It's our jam. We love it. And we went to this one breakout session one time at something, and it was on raising multiracial families. And it was only a few years ago. It was definitely with violent times in the news and stuff like that was part of the topics. And we thought we were going to get good tools, good communication things, good teaching points, right? And we get in there, and the speaker of it, all he did was shame everyone to be careful not to be white saviors. And believe me, everyone that went to this forum was not there because they're a white savior, and they're trying to be educated and they're trying to do the right thing. And all these white people basically got shamed for saying, I am humbly trying to be a learner. And that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I have so much thoughts on that.
Yeah.
So not on that specifically, but everything you said. So like with the white savior complex, I agree. Like throwing terms around flippantly is what we all do, right? Our culture's about, I'd say right now, and it can be super dangerous. With this like what we're talking about, the white savior thing, would you say that learning empathy for why it exists is important / has helped you like understand more? Because to me, I pair that with like just telling people, like you're saying, to listen, and that's the important thing. What I've personally found is people like the idea of being a better listener, but it's not for longevity though. Like it's really short lived, and I think that's where a lot of the danger comes into play, because I think there just needs to be, when in doubt, like even when it gets hard, you need to,
still listen.
Keep listening, right? I understand like the whole, shaming and stuff is not the right answer. And I think that absolutely does happen. But I would wonder what you think. Like, I think sometimes it also on the flip side happens less. I'm coming at a different perspective potentially, but happens like the flip side is weaponizing shame or being offended, or like kind of like white fragility. I'm not trying to advocate for the book or anything, but that term,
defensive mindset.
Defensive mindset. Yeah, thanks for giving me just a simple word to say.
No, but believe me,
Well, it's helpful for me. Like a lot of examples, but one personal example. Within the last couple of years, I honestly can't remember what it was. I posted something about. It was just like some of my thoughts on a blog post or something about how to have the conversations, or the importance of having conversations if you have young kids. And it was around the same time one of the many racial shootings happened this past year, I think. And someone, I don't even know if anyone saw it, because I deleted it because I didn't want anyone to chime in and have it be contentious. But somebody who I don't know wrote, 2 comments worth of that, coming at me, a Black girl, and just, ridiculing me and saying I'm tired of people, non-Black people, capitalizing off of our pain, and, went after me, said like, came after my kids, like, you can keep that all to yourself, all the just really, really hurtful stuff, like essentially on the side of like, us Black people, we don't need any help. You guys have done enough, and everyone's non-Black. And I didn't enjoy reading that, I'm not going to lie, but by the grace of God, I, paused and tried to reflect. And I don't remember if I said anything back, but I think I just deleted it and moved on. But I just remember thinking, I was like, this is important to not take this, to think big picture of like, there's hurt there. I don't know her. I'm not going to know her, but there's something there that, it could be really easy to come back and, argue, but I don't know. To me, that's kind of similar of like being aware. Something that's been helpful for me is being aware of racial trauma.
Yeah.
That just exists, and it's, all interconnected, obviously. But that's where I think some of the white savior stuff comes into play, because I think it can be really easy to be like, I'm not saying you're saying this, but come up with the individual mentality of like, you don't know me, and absolutely we shouldn't judge anybody. But I think this is what you're saying too. But I think it's doubly important for white people to also be aware of racial trauma.
Yeah.
That people are bringing in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What you're saying, this woman said to you. So she was a Black person that was upset with you for speaking about Black pain.
Well, and to be clear, I do believe it was around the same time as, I think it might have been Ahmaud Arbery. Yeah, I think it was him. So it was in response to that. And I was just posting about, it's not like I've never posted something before, and I don't have a big following. So it's just, I think I hashtagged something, and I don't even understand hashtags very well. So I think I commented back to her like an apologetic thing. And then she again came at me. I think it got even more mad. And she was she was just like, oh, if you really care, take off the hashtag. I was like, that's fine. So I did and moved on. But I don't know, that kind of stuck out to me. I was like, man, there's something there that I don't need to know about, but I need to be aware of.
This is the problem though with that specific instance. You cannot speak to what it is to be Black. Obviously, you are Asian. You are Korean, specifically Korean American. But how do you define yourself? Let you define yourself.
Yeah, no, that's not Korean American.
Okay, so I was like, what? Anywho, let me not tell you. But anywho, you have every right, though, to speak from the context of who you are and how you are experiencing also racial tensions. You might not be experiencing her racial tensions, her culture specifically racial tensions. This is the problem, is when sometimes in culture, people will want other cultures to care about their plight. But if this is not everybody, this is some people. But then you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say empathize. Oh, you empathize. This isn't your business. And I don't see that very often, but it sounds like that's what that case was. And I know it's so delicate, and different words are going to be different triggers for different people. But that's why I say, this is me, white context, saying to my white people out there, be humble learners, humble listeners. Don't stop learning. Don't stop listening. But also, you can't be afraid to be a part of these conversations.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And you know, on either side of any racial tension, but that's why, kind of like what I was saying earlier about when somebody says something ugly to me, like in the store, something like that. If you want to see change, you have to be a part of that change. To be a part of that change, you have to engage in these conversations, and you have to do it with gentleness and respect, or you're not going to get anywhere. But also, if you don't engage in them, nobody's going to learn anything. Like, I guess you just have to sign up to be a learner and an educator. Be a learner from those that know more of you, from those that know walks of life that you don't have, and an educator to those of you in the same walk that just don't get it.
I agree. And I agree that I wasn't trying to speak for Black people, and I can't do that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with you writing the article that you wrote. I'm just saying.
No, I know. No.
Or blog post or whatever.
I'm not pushing back. Maybe I am a little bit, not on you, but just, I think that's good. That's why I'm doing this, the whole podcast. But these conversations, I think there's just a lot to be aware of. Like, even I run into the danger of thinking, okay, I get it now. I'm a person of color. I get it. I have these I'm way ahead of everybody else. And it's not, I'm ahead of some people, sure, but overall, like, that frame of mind can be damaging, because then pride, right? Overall. But to me, with I truly learned a lot from that example, just because I could personalize it a little bit. And I agree, I can speak up. No one should be able to tell me what I can and can't, speak into, especially if it's about race and I'm speaking as a person of color. But for me, it was important to just have an awakening of or an awareness of the timing of it, I guess, because that's what I think. If it was just on a normal Tuesday or something, nothing had happened or whatever, which is harder and harder to put anything out where nothing has happened anyway.
Yeah.
if it was on a normal day, nothing was, in the news and stuff, I wouldn't have had that reaction. But to me, it was important for me to understand a little more of and I reached out to some of my friends, just asked them about it and about that kind of reaction. And I mean, none of my close friends felt that way, but it was helpful to hear well, this is what a lot of people would think like her, and to be aware of that, just to be aware. I'm not saying I necessarily regretted posting anything, but to be aware of, this picture of me posting after a Black man was just murdered in the street, and posting about something about how to have a nice conversation with your biracial kids at the dinner table. And, I'm smiling with my kids in the picture, how that could push some buttons and be aware, and even making it be, I was just like, man, if it was someone close to me that this has happened to, and then I saw people posting publicly, about it, I was like, oh, it really could appear as if I was trying to gain something from it. And then I had to have a heart check and just be real with myself. I'm like, am I doing that? I don't think so, but it's on social media and people read it. So I don't know. And it's more of a heady thought process that I had to go through that I feel like it's helpful, but it's one of those that I didn't necessarily arrive at this was right or this was wrong. It's just, I think, going back to the tendency for, I think, a lot of white people entering these conversations, maybe within this past year, or who are new to it, have that mentality of just explain, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And it's it's really not about that. It's listening, learning, and then sometimes, you can be told, but a lot of it is just, what are you going to do with what you know, versus just tell me, give me the map, I got it, and I'll do it. It's no, it's not about that.
Right. It's true.
All right, man, we've covered so much. This has been awesome. I mean, you have covered a lot of this already, but how can people listening be active, I don't know, in advocating for racial justice? I feel like we're inundated with information, especially right now in February, Black History Month. But do you have any a couple things that are really helpful?
I would say, kind of like a section we just did. I would say listen is first. Listen, and taking it back to scripture, slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen. And so it's when it's somebody you don't agree with because you don't see their side about race, you don't see their side about politics, you don't see their side about religion, about you name it. You don't have
it's easy.
You don't have to. Newsflash to everyone. You don't have to agree. We're asking you to listen. Just listen and try to understand. You can fully understand a concept and not arrive at the same conclusion, but you understand. And people are asking for understanding, listening, to be felt, to be heard, to be seen. And so I would say listen. I would also say there is... Everybody should do this, and haters gonna hate, back off. There's this test through Harvard University, and it's an implicit bias test. And it's actually multiple short little ones. They don't take very long at all, but it asks you a few questions, and then it's almost like a little game. You pick right side, left side based on certain questions asked, and it's subconscious. And I'm
going to do it. I've heard about this a million times, but I haven't done it.
Yeah. And this is not, and I would recommend people don't share that. I mean, you can share them if you want. It's not about sharing results. This is not a contest of mine showed no bias, mine showed blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. This is for personal growth. They have it for different races. They have it for gender equality. They have it for, I recommend everybody go and take all of them. Even if you think you know where you're
great.
You should do it. I've done it. I've recommended it to a couple of people in person that were like, I'm not taking that. I'm like, that's your choice. You're not a learner of life. But seriously, I didn't really say that. I'm just joking. But I highly recommend it. And I can send you that link and you can put that in the bio of this if you want. But anyway, everybody should take that. That's a good starter because people might not realize where they have certain weaknesses as well.
It's the best recommendation ever because it also is action all in one.
Yes. And then similar to what I was saying earlier, we got onto this tangent about courage and not being scared. So this is to every culture, race, gender out there, wherever you fall. basically, like I said, I cannot emphasize enough because I don't want to be misquoted ever at any point. I am telling people to humbly listen, to not go into any situation like, I know everything about this. So humbly listen, but then also to have courage to not be so scared you're going to say the wrong thing that you're not going to go hang out with somebody that's totally different than you. Because what does that accomplish? Nothing. And then they have to have the grace to, if you do say something silly or wrong, to basically give the best it of it is something we say in my work. Best it. Just know the good intentions that were probably there and not jump down their back and be like, I can't wait. Just say, hey, we actually say it like this, or that's actually offensive to me because, and then just explain it. Let's all just teach each other. And then educate yourself. And I know that you and Zach had talked about some books and like Esau Macaulay and stuff. And so I wanted to give a different medium. And we're already on a podcast, so I wanted to give something different than that as well. And so I was going to say, I'm a huge fan of conferences. And I know that COVID is a terrible time to be like, go to conferences, but they have virtual conferences. And I would recommend people find them. I know I'm a really big fan of the Global Leadership Summit and Missio Alliance. And I can send you links for Missio Alliance specifically as well.
I can put all this stuff in the show notes. Someone just told me how to do all that, which I hadn't been doing, so I apologize.
No, you're good. We just missed the conference they just had. It was a few weeks ago. And the topic was resilience, race, and resistance. And I know, but I will tell you, I might be wrong. I can get you more information later, but I think it's available for purchase for replay. And but even if you don't get to see that conference specifically, if you go on their website, they offer videos and articles and, basically, Missio Alliance is just a fellowship of Christian institutions, churches, and leaders. And they have a big heart for living missional and the racial reconciliation movement, education, whatever you want to call it, is a really big part of that, of the gospel, of living it out. So yeah, highly recommend getting plugged in with them. And then as far as, so I was just going to say, listen, engage, and then, live it out. So like go and do what other people do. That's not what you do. So like games, cultural events, festivals, sing songs that aren't something you typically sing, whether you're a believer or not, whether your context is church or not. Listen to music that isn't all white people or all Hispanic people or all whatever your situation is. I know as a worship leader, I am always trying to make sure I mix up what artists or groups we're doing the songs of. And whether that's so that somebody new or minority culture can be like, oh, hey, I resonate with this, or I've heard this before, or I feel seen and heard, whether it's for that, or if it's for the other majority group of people that are like, what's this? I've never heard this, trying to get them. So I'm educating them to be more familiar and to be more comfortable and educated with that as well. So yeah.
We got to do a whole worship music episode.
Woohoo! Yeah.
That could be fun. Take it back to the shout out to Norfolk Christian days to now. Oh man, that'd be fun. Or not fun. Who knows? I'm not even going to add any recommendations because that was awesome. Those are all like action based, and man, that was awesome.
Well, I will say I'm loving listening to your podcast, and I want to collect all of your data too, because when I have these random conversations with people like at Home Depot and stuff, people genuinely will ask me, and it is typically white people asking me, I don't know how to get started. I'm just now catching up to understanding some of this. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. And so I just give some of these, it's a starting place, I'll
also echo what, you said with just coming in, listening. We're going to beat a dead horse with this, but even more so to our white friends, listening, the tendency or the temptation to just shut down and use it as a time to, I don't want to be embarrassed, or I don't want to be ashamed or say the wrong thing. To be able to remove yourself from those conversations, I think is what people, especially people of color, mean when we point out that it's a luxury. That's actually a privilege to be able to just compartmentalize and be like, oh, I'll talk about this, in this 2-hour time frame that I have scheduled to have this conversation, then go back to my normal life, because your normal life is privilege, really, and you don't have to really deal with it unless you choose to. So I'm ending on a hot take with that, but I wanted to put that in there. I didn't want to let that go by.
Something else, small but big, it's the little decisions that make up your life as well. It's not some big sweeping huge thing all the time. And something small but big is change up what businesses you're shopping at, change up what restaurants, shops you're shopping in and restaurants you're eating at. I know that I find myself like looking up a lot more Black-owned soul food restaurants in the area because I want my kids to grow up going to them. I don't want them to go to school and don't know any of the hot spots. You know what I mean? So like,
you're gonna make me leave the New River Valley finally.
I'm serious. Like our whole family, like it's an immersion experience for all of us, and I have to put myself in positions where I'm the minority so that my kids are the majority. I have to do that. As often as I can. So yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That will be really powerful, and that's a great perspective to have on having young kids who don't explicitly understand what's going on, but that looking back will, mean everything that you guys went out of your way to put themselves in those kind of environments.
And I'm like, all parents, no matter what your situation is, we're all gonna not do things perfectly. And I know I'm not going to perfect any of these 5. I'm not going to parent any of these 5 kids perfectly, but I do daggone it at the end of this life. I want them to know and be able to look back. Mommy tried. I can see where mommy tried and where daddy tried. And hopefully they think we did do a good job, but I'm not so ignorant as to think that they're going to believe that we're perfect parents in any way, for any reason, any of them.
Sure.
Because we're not perfect people. But yeah, so efforts are made, and we're always asking.
That's gonna be the title of this episode.
Efforts were made.
Mommy tried with Christy Miller. That's perfect.
I love it.
Yeah. Man, all right. We seriously, I know we'll talk for 5 more hours.
Yes.
Thank you so much for doing this. You'll definitely come back, whether it's the the worship music episode.
So many more things. More. In the beginning, I was like, this is such a big topic, and I was struggling to hone it in. So, yeah.
Always. Well, seriously, thank you for doing this. I know our listeners are going to benefit a ton from listening to what you had to say. So, thank you. All right, again, thank you so much to Christy for sacrificing some of her coveted family time to come on the show. When you're done listening, please make sure to check out the show notes for some of the resources we mentioned throughout the episode, because there were, a lot. And as always, this podcast is created to be a place for people of color and our allies to safely have the conversations we're usually only having behind the scenes, and to invite anyone else to listen in, learn, and grow with us. Our artwork was created by Ashley Bush, and our music was written and produced by Dent.